The Dacia Striker is the cheapest way to stop buying an SUV. For 10 years, families walked into showrooms and drove home in tall, thirsty crossovers they did not really need. Dacia watched all of it. Then, for 2026, it built the car those crossovers were only ever pretending to be. One machine that swallows luggage like an estate, sits up high like an SUV, and drinks fuel like a small saloon. The company calls it the best of three worlds. The genuinely surprising part is what it costs, and we will get there, because the number turns out to be far smaller than a car this size has any right to wear. To understand why this car even exists, you have to know what Dacia is chasing. This is the brand that already sells the cheapest new cars in Europe, and it has just decided the crowded middle of the market is next. The Striker is its bid to pull family buyers out of ordinary SUVs and into something cleverer. So the whole car is really one long argument aimed straight at the driver who thinks a crossover is the only sensible choice left. And the argument begins the moment you look at it. It helps to know this is not Dacia's only big car. The Striker slots in right alongside the boxy Bigster SUV, sharing its family DNA, but not its silhouette. Where the Bigster stands tall and square, the Striker lies long and low, chasing the buyer who wants the space without the bulk. This is a brand that built its name on the best-selling small car in all of Europe. It is now aiming that same ruthless value, thinking at bigger, pricier metal. The Striker is what happens when the cheap car specialists move up market, without ever forgetting the price tag on the way. Start with the shape, because the shape is the whole pitch. The Striker is 4.5 meters of deliberate contradiction. Draw one line down its side, from the headlights to the tail, and the car splits cleanly in two. Above that line, everything is smooth and low. A raked windscreen, a long roofline, glass angled like a saloon built for the motorway. Below it, everything turns blunt and rugged. Squared arches, thick dark cladding, and a body lifted high enough to clear a rutted farm track. It is two cars fused down the middle, and the seam simply refuses to show. Dacia's designers actually gave that split line a job. They call it the shoulder line, and it runs the full length of the body, tying the front lights to the rear ones. Everything above it is meant to whisper efficiency, the part inspired by sleek estates and saloons. Everything below it is meant to promise toughness, the part borrowed from proper off-roaders. Most cars pick one story and commit. This one tells both at once, on purpose, and trusts you to see the logic rather than the compromise. The face is the first thing your eye lands on, and it is brand new. The Striker is the very first Dacia to wear the company's fresh lighting signature, a bold letter T stamped into all four corners of the body. Up front, the two bright T's sit inside a wide gloss black grille, split down the center by the brand's new emblem, the Dacia Link. A generous, squared bumper sits below, pushing the whole nose wider and planting it on the road. Think about that for a second. A budget brand just handed itself a face you can read from the far side of a car park. The kind of signature that used to cost proper German money. Walk around to the back, and the same idea returns, only bolder. The rear T's climb up the corners and frame a full-width black panel, with the word Dacia pressed into it in raised capital letters. There is no chrome, no clutter, nothing shouting for attention. It looks less like a cheap car trying to seem expensive, and more like an expensive idea delivered cheaply. That, it turns out, is the entire personality of this thing captured in a single glance. Step back and take in the whole side, and the numbers start to explain the magic. The Striker is 4.62 meters long, which makes it a genuine estate, and actually a fraction longer than Dacia's own Bigster SUV. But it stands only 1.5 meters tall. That is a full hand shorter than the crossovers it is quietly hunting, which mostly clear 1.60 meters. That low roof is the trick that makes everything else work. It keeps the wind off its speed, it keeps the fuel bills down, and it still leaves ground clearance close to a proper SUV underneath. Integrated bars run the length of the roof, ready for a box or a pair of bikes. And the wheels are pushed right into each corner, 17 inches as standard, with 18s and 19s on the options list. Stand at the corner and the proportions read as confidence, not bulk. The long bonnet, the pushed-out wheels, and that low roof give it the planted look of something far more expensive. It has real presence on the road, the kind that makes people glance twice. Yet it carries none of the top-heavy awkwardness that so many tall crossovers wear. Dacia wanted commanding without cartoonish, and on stance alone, it has clearly landed the balance. Then there is the color, because Dacia has finally discovered color. The Striker launches with 7 shades, and 2 of them are completely new to the whole brand. There's a soft, cool frost green and a deep cosmic blue, both a world away from the gray and white that budget cars are usually sentenced to for life. And along the lower body sits Starkle, an untreated, hard-wearing cladding made partly from recycled plastic. It is left deliberately raw, so a car park scuff or a bramble scratch just wipes away and vanishes. This is a car designed from the start to be used, not babied, so it looks the part. But a clever exterior means nothing if the inside feels like a punishment. So open the door and climb in. The first thing you meet is a 10.1-inch touchscreen, standing proud of the dashboard. It runs wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so your own phone becomes the brains of the car. That means Dacia does not have to charge you for built-in maps you would never actually use. And then, mercifully, below that screen, there are buttons. Real, physical toggles for the climate control, and actual switches on the steering wheel. In an age when every rival is burying the heater 3 menus deep, Dacia left the important things exactly where your hand expects them. That simplicity is a deliberate strategy, not a cut corner. The whole system is built to be understood in seconds, rather than studied like a manual. There are no subscriptions to unlock features the car already has, and no basic controls hidden behind a swipe. It trusts your phone to do the clever work, and keeps its own software light and quick. For a huge slice of buyers, that is not a downgrade at all. It is a quiet relief. The materials are where the honesty of this car really lives. Nothing in here is soft, or plush, or pretending to be leather. It is tough, textured, washable plastic. The kind you can wipe down after a muddy dog or a burst juice carton without a flicker of panic. Dacia even offers a wipe-clean upholstery it calls TEP, built for genuine family chaos. And the space is the reward for that low, long roofline. There is proper room in the back for grown adults, a flat and sensible cabin, and clever cubbies scattered everywhere. The center console alone holds nearly 7 liters of odds and ends. It feels less like a stripped-out bargain, and more like a tool that quietly respects your time. The seats themselves follow the same split personality as the body. Order the rugged version and you get that hard-wearing, wipe-down cloth, made for wet coats and sandy boots. Order the Comfort Focus version instead, and the cabin softens toward long-distance touring, with warm front seats and a heated steering wheel for winter mornings. Either way, the driving position sits you up high, with a clear view down the road. It is the commanding seat people actually buy SUVs for, delivered in a body that refuses to drink like one. Which brings us to the part every estate lives or dies on, the boot. Lift the tailgate and the Striker gives you 600 liters of space. That is more than most family SUVs you could name, and only a whisker behind the very best estates in the class. Fold the rear seats down and it grows to 1600 liters. A flat load bay long enough for flat pack furniture, a full camping kit, or a very large and very happy dog. On the plusher versions, the tailgate even powers open on its own. This is the estate car's oldest promise, quietly out-muscling the tall SUVs that were supposed to replace it. If a car this practical, at a price we still have not said out loud, sounds like sense-winning over show, then subscribe and stay with me. The number is coming, and it reframes everything you have just seen. Now Dacia knows one size never fits one family, so the Striker arrives in 3 distinct flavors. The entry point is called Expression. It unlocks that full palette of color and the core kit that matters. Above it sits Extreme, the rugged one. It is wrapped in that raw Starkle cladding, floored with rubber mats made from recycled material, and fitted with a downhill speed control. That system gently drags the car down a slippery slope for you, so you never have to ride the brakes over loose ground. And then there is Journey, the soft one, built for the long haul. It adds a powered driver's seat, heated front seats, a heated steering wheel, and a tailgate that opens itself. One car, 3 honest answers to 3 different lives. 3 versions of the same idea, each still riding on the same clever, low-slung platform underneath. Which leaves just one question hanging in the air. What actually drives it? Now, the engine, or rather the engines, because forgetting fuel was never the plan here. The version in front of us is the Hybrid 155. Under the bonnet sits a 1.8-liter petrol engine, paired with 2 electric motors and a small battery. They feed a clever automatic gearbox that has no clutch pedal anywhere in sight. The genuinely smart part is how the car drives itself between the 2 power sources. In town, where most of these cars spend their entire lives, the Striker runs on pure electricity for up to 80% of the time. It slips back to petrol so smoothly that you rarely feel the handover happen at all. On paper, the numbers are modest, and that is the point. It makes around 155 horsepower and reaches 62 miles an hour in a shade under 10 seconds. But it returns roughly 60 miles to the gallon without you ever plugging it in or changing how you drive. This was never meant to be a fast car. It was built to be a quiet, frugal, unbothered one. The sort that costs you almost nothing to live with and asks for almost nothing in return. In a world obsessed with power figures, that restraint is the whole flex. On the move, the payoff is calm. The electric motors do the pulling away from a standstill, so town driving is smooth and near silent. There is no gear hunting, and no strained engine note climbing to keep up. The petrol side only wakes when it is genuinely needed, then settles straight back down the moment it is not. It will never once thrill an enthusiast, but it will glide through a school run and a supermarket car park without ever raising its voice, and that is precisely the job it was hired for. And if you genuinely need the Striker to leave the tarmac, there is a second engine that changes its character completely. Choose the hybrid 150 4x4, and Dacia bolts a separate electric motor straight onto the rear axle. That gives you real, on-demand all-wheel drive, with no heavy prop shaft running the length of the car. It brings proper terrain modes for snow, mud, and sand, and lifts the ground clearance to 20 centimeters. For a family that lives up a farm track or chases the snow every single winter, it becomes the cheapest true 4x4 on sale that is not a bare, agricultural workhorse. So here is where the whole story finally pays off. The price. The Dacia Striker starts at under $25,000 in pounds or in euros depending on where you happen to stand. Let that number land for a second. This is small hatchback money for a car that is longer than a family SUV, roomier than most estates, and cheaper to run than either of them. It slides in underneath the established estates it competes with, and it makes the tall crossover parked in the next bay look like a very expensive way to carry the exact same 3 bags of shopping. The price is not a footnote on this car. It is the thing the entire machine was engineered backwards from. Think about who it quietly steals from. A buyer eyeing a Nissan Qashqai or a Kia Sportage is chasing space and a high seat, and the Striker offers both for less. A buyer loyal to a Skoda or a Volkswagen estate is chasing a big boot and low running costs, and the Striker answers that too. It is aimed at the sensible middle of the market from below, undercutting nearly everyone while matching what they actually do. That is a difficult position for a rival to argue with on a forecourt. So picture the person this car is really for. It is the family that wants one vehicle to do absolutely everything, without the monthly payments of a premium badge. It is the couple who camp at weekends and commute on weekdays, and flatly refuse to own 2 cars to cover both. It is the buyer who has quietly worked out that the SUV was always more image than substance. For every one of them, the Striker is not a sacrifice. It is the moment the math finally makes sense. Because there are things to forgive here, and this is the honest part. To hit that price, Dacia made real choices, and you can feel every one of them. The cabin is durable and sensible, but it is plain. There is no plush, squishy luxury, no ambient glow, no theater when you shut the door. The engineers spent the money on the parts that keep working after 5 hard years, and almost none of it on the parts that merely feel special on a showroom test drive. And this full hybrid version drives the front wheels only. So if you truly need to head off-road, you have to step up to that pricier 4x4. The Striker asks you to want substance far more than you want softness. That is the entire deal. But if that is a deal you can happily make, this is one of the most quietly sensible new cars in years. The Dacia Striker does not try to beat the SUV at being flashy or loud. It simply refuses to play that game at all, then undercuts everyone while doing the actual job better. What Dacia has really done is call the whole industry's bluff. For years, buyers were told that height meant safety, that a badge meant quality, and that carrying a family meant spending big. The Striker quietly disagrees with all three. So do not file this one away as just another cheap car. File it as the moment the humble estate stopped apologizing, stood up a little taller, and remembered it was the smart choice the whole time. And if you want to see what the tougher, all-wheel drive version can really do out in the rough, that 4x4 is exactly where this story goes next.